Welcome to Grammar 5A. In this booklet, we will be going over transitive and intransitive verbs, adverbs, and sentence diagramming. Transitive and intransitive verbs. So far, we have learned throughout the grammar curriculum two different types of verbs, action and linking. But in this series, starting with this booklet, we will be exploring action verbs a little further. So we're going to jump right into it. First, we're going to go over what is a transitive verb. We use the acronym TV for it in this booklet. So a transitive verb is an action verb that transfers the action completed by the subject to an object or a person. We label this object or person a DO or direct object. So we've already worked with these a lot. So now we're going to look at an intransitive verb. This is an action verb that is completed by the subject but does not transfer that action to an object or a person. There is no DO. We will see in this booklet that some verbs can be transitive in one sentence and then intransitive in another. So let's look at some examples. First we have I drink water. I is the subject. What am I doing? I am drinking. Drink is my verb. Now, is anything receiving the action of being drunk? Is my action of drinking being transferred to an object or a person in this sentence? Yes, water is receiving the action of being drunk, making it the direct object, which means that this verb, drink, is transitive. And once again, we're using that acronym TV. So I'm going to label it right underneath. So, like I said, this is a type of action verb we have dealt with a lot and we are very comfortable with, hopefully. So now let's look at two more examples. Here we have Oliver flies the plane and the bee flies through the yard. So that first sentence, Oliver flies the plane, our subject is Oliver. And what action is Oliver completing? He is completing the action of flying. Now, is anything receiving the action of the flying? Yes, the plane is being flown. Oliver is completing the action. The plane is receiving the action. So that makes flies a transitive verb, TV. So now we have our other sentence, the bee flies through the yard. The bee is our subject. What action is the bee completing? Flies. It is completing that action. Is anything receiving that action? No. We do have another noun in the sentence, yard, but if we look at the whole sentence, the bee flies through the yard, we see that through the yard is a prepositional phrase. And we know that none of the important words in this sentence will be found in a prepositional phrase. So when we read the sentence without the prepositional phrase, we have the sentence, the bee flies. The bee is completing an action. We have an action verb, but nothing is receiving the action, making it an intransitive verb, what we will label as IV. So now we're going to look at one more sentence. The flower smells nice. We have our subject, flower, and our verb, smells. Now, the verb smells, is that an action being completed by the flower? No. Flowers do not smell. This is not an action verb. So, what are we looking at? Well, as we know, there are action and there are linking verbs. This sentence has a linking verb. Smells is linking flower to the word nice, a predicate adjective. Remember, that's an adjective in the predicate after the verb, modifying the subject. So what we're going to label this as is an LV, a linking verb. Notice that an intransitive verb and a linking verb are not the same thing. An intransitive verb is still an action being completed by a subject, whereas a linking verb is not an action. A linking verb is something that can be replaced by a to be verb conjugated properly for the subject, and it links that subject to more information. So that will be one of the core things you're going to do later on in this booklet, is identifying different types of verbs. So make sure you know that there could be a transitive, an intransitive, or a linking verb in the sentences. So now we're going to get into adverbs and linking verbs. So far, we have learned about adverbs as describing words for verbs, mainly action verbs. But now we're going to explore adverbs a little further, and we know that adverbs can also describe the state of being presented by a linking verb, LV. So, what does that mean? Let's look at some examples. Here we have two sentences. The flower smells nice today, and Ken had not been a tutor before. That first sentence, obviously we've used this just a few minutes ago, but let's break it down. We've got our subject and we've got our verb, and we know we've got a PA. And so the flower smells nice. When is it smelling nice? When is the state of being occurring? Today. That is an adverb modifying our verb. Even though it's not an action being completed, it is still being modified by this adverb, and it's answering a question as to when it is occurring. So now let's look at another one. We have can as our subject. We have had been, which is the past perfect form of to be. And then we know that tutor is a PN. It is a noun in the predicate after the verb that is renaming the subject. It is our PN. So now we have Ken had not been a tutor before. Remember, not is a special type of adverb. It essentially negates the verb. So in this instance, not is negating the state of being, of Ken being a tutor. And then before modifies when that state of being is being negated. So, like I said, that is answering when. We have not, that negates the state of being. Also look out for adverbs that answer how and where the state of being is occurring. So now I'm going to introduce you to one other new activity we have in this series. It will look very similar to what you have done back in Grammar 2. And I'm going to just look at that first page with you really quick and read the directions. Cross out and rewrite any letters which should be capitalized. Add the correct punctuation where it is needed. Cross out and replace any improper words, pronouns, adverbs, adjectives, misspellings, etc. So what we're doing in this activity is we're just testing you on all of the good grammar knowledge you have learned over the past 4 series. So remember, we're looking for capitalization done correctly. We're looking for punctuation done correctly. We're looking to make sure all the words are appropriate. So that means, are we using objective, subjective pronouns? Is the adverb or adjective correct? That could be comparative superlative. Remember, are we comparing 2 things or 3 or more things? If we have an adverb modifying an adjective, is that appropriate? Things like that. We also may have some misspellings. We have learned a lot, so there's plenty of more things that could be wrong in a sentence, and you're just going to have to remember all the good stuff you've remembered, or that you've learned. So we'll see that this first one is done for us. See that we are giving you the sentences without any punctuation or capitalization, and with possibly misspelled words. So on that top one, we're having you cross out the M in mom because it needs to be capitalized at the beginning of a sentence. We are changing me to I because it is a subject in that sentence. Kroger is a proper noun, so it needs to be capitalized. And carrots is misspelled, so we cross that out. We spelled it correctly above it, and then we put a period because it's a sentence. So just take your time. Think of all the different things that it could be. Is it a title? Is it an address? Is it a date? Do I need a comma? Do I need an Oxford comma? All of that good stuff. Take your time, and you will be learning throughout it and remembering the things that you've learned when you make a mistake. And that's okay, because there's a lot of things that you've learned, and we want you to remember all of it. So the last thing we're going to go over is sentence diagramming, and we're going to use adverbs and linking verbs again. So let's jump right in. we have the sentence, the water seems very dirty here. So we're going to start with the basics as we always do with our sentence diagrams, and we're going to find our subject and our verb. Water seems. Now we've got one other important word in here, and that's going to be dirty. It is our predicate adjective. It's describing the water, which is our subject, but it's in the predicate found after the verb. Now we have a couple of other modifiers. We have the, describing water. We have here, modifying where the state of being is occurring, where our linking verb is occurring. And then we have very, which is modifying to what extent the water is dirty. So remember, when we are looking through this booklet and we are having you identify different adverbs, that adverbs don't just describe verbs, they can describe adjectives and other adverbs as well. So watch out for that. So now that we know what we're doing in this sentence, we are going to draw our diagram. We have one long line that is horizontal, our base, and that's what all the important words are going to be written on. And then we're dissecting that into different parts. So here we are separating out our whole subject and whole predicate. And then we are separating out our simple verb from any other important words in the predicate. And in this instance, it's a PA, so we have a diagonal line. And then, of course, we have a modifier for the subject, the verb, and the PA. So we need diagonal lines coming off of each of those sections of our baseline. So now we can start filling it out. We have water seems dirty. Like I said, all of our important words on that baseline. This is the core of our sentence. And then we can fill in our modifiers, which gives us extra information about this sentence. So the water here is modifying the state of being, and then very tells to what extent the water is dirty. So here we have our sentence diagram, and we're all done. Hopefully this looks very familiar to things we've done in 4, and some of it is what we've done in Grammar 3. So hopefully it's nothing too overwhelming for the sentence diagramming. And remember to just go slow, pay attention to your details. And if you have any other questions about this or any other grammar book, please contact the owner of your center.